What I would really like to know about MAGA folks who are disappointed about Trump's handling of the Epstein files, what exactly were you expecting here? What was the result that you hoped for exactly? I'm starting to think a lot of these folks are just blatantly in denial about the fact that this is a known con man. He does stuff like this, you guys. He does stuff like this. There is truly only one thing that is surprising about his handling of the Epstein files: the fact that he made such a big deal out of it to begin with. I am surprised that of his many, many supporters for these cabinet positions, he did not pick people who were not interested in finding out what was in the Epstein files, finding out who was on the client list, etc. I was very surprised that he made people like that part of his administration because he does not want this list out there for whatever reason. I'm not even, to me, the reason should be relatively obvious. But regardless of whether or not I personally think that he may be on it, it's amazing to me that he chose people who would make this a focus of his administration. There are people who are Trump supporters who don't believe the Epstein files are a big deal, or would gladly look the other way if Trump turned out to be a client, or are just of the mindset that there are other priorities right now. Why didn't he pick people like that to be part of his administration? Why did he instead pick these people who are going to put the Epstein files at the forefront, who are going to speak publicly about the Epstein files and the fact that they're going to be released? The reality is, all of this hype about the Epstein client list finally coming out under the Trump administration, that came from the Trump administration and from the Trump campaign. That did not come from a bunch of Democrats hyping up this issue. They hyped up the issue. They made it a focus. They said, we're going to tell you the truth. And then they were like, oh, yeah, the client list we said that we had, turns out there's not one. Now, how this second Trump term is kind of shaping out in terms of how the members of his administration function, I feel very torn on, because it seems like some of them are the type of people who are just going to go along with whatever he says and do whatever he tells them to do. Then you have people who might agree with the basics of Trump's policies, but they know that he's incompetent and they know that he's not there and they're not going to get his permission to go and do things. So, for example, Secretary of Defense Hegseth actually paused weapons to Ukraine and did not tell Donald Trump. The president of the United States did not know that that occurred. Regardless of how you feel about Ukraine, regardless of how you feel about whether or not the United States should be sending them weapons, that's a pretty major thing for a Secretary of Defense to just hide while he's sitting right next to the president, especially. Then you have people like Pam Bondi. I don't think this is a matter of her just going out there and making these statements that were kind of reckless, that they would review this information, they would release it to the public, making all these empty promises. I genuinely believe that she was doing Trump's bidding.
200 victims, 200. So we have over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Obviously, I don't know that for a fact, but just based on observation, I think this is one of Donald Trump's biggest trolls. He loves to troll people. Trolling people is like his life, which is pathetic. You're a United States president, and you're almost 80 years old. You can't think of something better to do with your time than to troll people. I think sometimes he miscalculates. I think in this situation, he miscalculated how much backlash there was going to be. Now, like I said, a lot of the horrible things that Trump wants to do and has done, his supporters will continue to support. They are deplorable, depraved people. But this was a major thing that they were promised, and a lot of them were looking forward to it. But then on top of that, they keep bringing it up. They keep saying, oh, it's coming, oh, it's coming, oh, it's coming. They have these photo ops with these binders. They have these meetings. They have Pam Bondi promising things to the public. And the next thing you know, oh, there is no client list. Just like that. It's just all gone. I think that Donald Trump loves to troll and mess with liberals and leftists. I think that is genuinely a main focus of his when he's making Truth Social posts and when he's leading press conferences. But I think he enjoys trolling his own audience and his own supporters just as much. Part of me does wonder if this will cause some people to wake up to the reality that a United States president using his position to troll liberals or troll anyone they disagree with should maybe not be the priority. Should maybe not be the priority, because he does make it a priority. He absolutely makes trolling people a priority. That's not leadership. That's not someone who wants to lead. That's not someone who cares about leading. That's someone who cares about all the wrong things. And what you need to understand is someone who goes through life enjoying making a joke out of everyone around them as often as they can will eventually make a joke out of you. It is truly a matter of time. And while there are many Trump supporters who are just extremely upset over this issue and feel completely played by Trump, which at this point you really have no business complaining that a con man conned you. Sorry, zero pity. There are also those who are making excuses for this whole thing and trying to justify it. I think I have not watched a lot of these clips, but Ben Shapiro was probably my favorite. And his argument was basically that there are other priorities right now. The president, being a United States president, he obviously has a lot to do. He obviously has a lot on his plate. Like, cut him some slack, guys. He's working really hard for us. It's such bootlicking bullshit. Because this is not an instance where the left dared him to do something and he half promised and then was like, nah, never mind. This is something he has promised. This is something his administration has promised. This is something his campaign has promised for a while. You don't get to just back up after all this time and say, okay, after all these promises to release this information that we definitely do have access to, the information we said we had access to does not exist. How is that acceptable to you as an answer? How is that in any way an acceptable way to handle this situation? But even aside from that, there are other priorities. You can make that argument for literally anything. There are always a lot of news stories that are worth talking about. On any given day, there are plenty of issues that are very important that you could talk about. The idea that because there are other things going on in the world, that is some type of justification for Donald Trump lying to the American public about information he had access to and whether or not he would release it. That is ridiculous. Stuff like this is why it's called a cult. Because you've got part of MAGA that's still trying to find some way to justify this. There is no justification for this. Regardless of how you feel about Jeffrey Epstein, regardless of whether or not this case was ever something that caught your attention or was something you were very invested in, he made promises to the public to release this information. You don't get to, after all of this buildup, just pull back and say, oh, yeah, there actually is no information for us to release. That's ridiculous. But then for those who are calling this out, most of them are just blatantly blaming everything on Pam Bondi. If you listen to a lot of them, they will be very careful in their language not to go too far and criticize Trump himself. The level of bootlicking is nuts. Now, don't get me wrong, Pam Bondi is not an innocent person in all of this. Pam Bondi is fully responsible for her own choices and her own actions in this situation. I am not denying or diminishing that, but to act like all of the blame falls on her and Donald Trump bears no responsibility for this train wreck is nuts. Not only was she following his lead on what she was communicating to the public about this issue and about what would be released to the public, but also, he hired her. He hired her. The amount of people that MAGA will turn their back on, that Trump puts in his administration, that turns out to be someone who didn't perform the way they wanted to, is crazy. It's never Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump's choices never fall on him. Now, yes, people he hires are responsible for their own actions and their own choices, yes. But at some point, if you have problem with appointee after appointee after appointee after appointee, at some point you're making the bad choices in who you appoint. How much does it take for you to go, maybe this guy can't actually put together a team that functions? Maybe this guy can't actually lead a staff. maybe this guy just doesn't have it together. Which for me, I'm so beyond that argument. Dementia Dawn is gone. Okay, he's gone. Trump is not here to drain the swamp. He is not here to hold people accountable. He is not here to bring law and order. He is here to do what he does best, which is always chicken out. And frankly, if you expected any better from him, you were not paying attention. And that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed this video, half this video, or even just a quarter of this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe.